You are listening to Frog Talk, presented by Black Ribbon.
Hello and welcome to Frog Talk. Today we are diving deep into the world of entrepreneurial mindset and personal growth, and how these powerful concepts can revolutionize workforce development and enhance the employee experience in our rapidly evolving workplace. I have the great pleasure of speaking with Heidi Schalk, a business strategy and leadership coach, author, speaker, and host of the Be S.H.E podcast. Heidi has been named one of the top 30 inspiring entrepreneurs to look out for in 2024 by the NYC Journal. She encourages women to build successful online businesses and helps them discover their potential to making a lasting impact on the world. Welcome, Heidi.
Hi, Nader. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Same here. I'm really happy that you're here as well. Your work in empowering entrepreneurs, particularly women, is quite inspiring, and I want to go deep right away. So, if you don't mind, you've mentioned that your journey into entrepreneurship was catalyzed by your children. Can you share a pivotal moment or experience with your kids that made you realize you needed to start your own business, and how has that decision impacted you both professionally and in your ability to serve others?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started my business about 6.5 years ago when I found myself at the divorce table. So prior to my divorce, I was a stay-at-home mom. So I basically was always available for my kids. I was picking them up, taking them to school every day. I was part of activities, homework, all the home stuff. I also was heavily involved in their school. I was homeroom mom. I was also co-chair of the auction committee at the school for 2 years. So they saw me not only at home, but also at their school at least once or twice a week. So I was heavily involved with them. And then once I was moving through divorce, I needed to figure out how to create an income. But the one thing that I realized right away is my why, which was I wanted to be home with my kids because they were so used to me being home. I was used to being with them, and I wanted that to try and keep that as consistent as possible while we were moving through this transition. That being said, I did work 2 jobs as I was building my business. I did hit burnout about 10 months in while I was building my business, working 2 jobs, juggling, taking them to 2 different places for school, picking them up, and handling the day-to-day. So I actually needed to step away. I stepped away from my business for about a year and a half, because I needed to make a decision on, I took a look at what's working and what's not working. And when I hit burnout, I realized that my kids were getting the worst of me. They were getting the tired, exhausted version of me because I was rinsing and repeating this, rat race that wasn't sustainable. So I stepped away. And then when I came back, the why still drove me. I still had that why of wanting to be home with my kids. My kids were navigating some new things with school. My son was moving through an ADHD diagnosis, changing schools, all of that. So that why of wanting to be home with them was what brought me back into entrepreneurship. It brought me in entrepreneurship, and it brought me back because it kept driving me forward to have that goal. So that's why I say they're the catalyst, because that was my mission, was to be home with them.
And that was unwavering, it seems like. That why just never changed. It was innate to you from the get-go.
Absolutely. And when I work with my clients, I tell them, what is your why? That's one of the first things that we determine. And many people say money. And I'm like, that's great. We all want money, and that's a great why, but it's not deep enough, because at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is this lonely road, because it is a solo journey. I work from home. I don't work in an office where I go see people every day. So building those connections online is important, but really connecting to the deeper why. So I always say, find that why that makes you cry. It has to be an emotional tug on your heart. So those days that are hard, where you're like, I don't know if I can keep doing this, that why is going to keep driving you. Money isn't deep enough to keep you going when those days get hard, because we can all go back and get a 9-to-5, right? And make money. We can find ways to make money, and we don't have to do it the entrepreneurial way. So you really need to get deep on what that why is. And many times it's peeling back those layers. Okay, great. You want money. What's that money going to get you? Why do you want the money? And then why do you want that? And then why do you want that? Until I actually see that emotion come out of somebody, we go deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah, that resonates with me deeply because, as you know, I'm a brand strategist, and that's what we do. It's all about diving as deep as possible to find that essence, to find that truth. And the speaking of find your why that makes you cry, my own greatest achievements in my work is when I bring my own clients to tears. I've brought my clients to tears through the work that we do, and honestly, there's no better feeling for me in the way that I do my work. It's kind of a profound moment. So yeah, I understand deeply. So in that same capacity, I think one thing that really fascinates me about your approach, sort of more on the functional level, is the fact that you want to instill the entrepreneurial mindset into people, even if they don't want to necessarily become entrepreneurs, but people who just have jobs, working for a company, working for others, or whatever, and have no inherent issue with that, want that, but the entrepreneurial mindset and being able to apply that is a way to somehow create, let's say, a better work environment, or have more meaningful conversations, have more input value, and so on. So why do you believe adopting that entrepreneurial mindset is so critical for especially today's workforce as we navigate, this crazy challenge of career development and employee engagement?
I think whether you're on this journey yourself or you're an entrepreneur, you're working with other people, helping them, build their business up and succeed. I think it's really important for the workforce, managers, people that, CEOs, whoever it may be, really allows their team to have ownership of what they're doing. So they feel they have self-worth. They feel like they're contributing versus just showing up and punching a time clock every day. So I think having that, instilling that and giving that freedom in allowing your team, your people to make decisions, to be able to come to you with suggestions and being open to receiving those suggestions, whether, and if they come with a problem, okay, you can come to me with a problem, but what is a solution? Like, don't just come to me with problems, find the solution. Empowering them to create and come up with their own solutions, I think is powerful. And I think it helps create a better work environment and a better culture and more long-term employees where you're having less turnover because they're invested. You're allowing them to be invested in the growth of the company. And like I said, take ownership of what they're creating and what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that a lot. The open door policy is interesting as well, because on the one hand, you do want someone who comes in with a problem to also offer, at least be able to offer a solution or have the capacity to think through it or talk through it. On the other hand, I've also experienced fake open door policies where people aren't even, like, the leadership claims an open door policy, but there actually isn't one. And people will quite literally get fired if they come in and disrupt or ask questions or create conflict or anything of that nature. So yeah, I agree with that. And that speaks to not just self-care, but actually implementing an atmosphere of support in a work environment. And you emphasize the importance of self-care in your coaching. How does prioritizing employee well-being translate to improved productivity and potentially better customer service as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important. I know I'll speak into women because that's who I coach. And I always tell them, like, it's really important that you're scheduling time for yourself. And I think in the workforce that we need to be allowing our employees to have, like, I know when I worked for companies, some of them have supplied like gym memberships and things like that. And I think it's really important. One, it's going to help them manage their insurance costs. It's going to bring their insurance costs down because you're creating a more healthy human, right? You're supporting your employees into creating a more healthier lifestyle, which is going to bring your insurance rates down. and they're happier. When people have their body moving, they're happier internally, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. So I just think that, allowing them to, or giving them some, perks as far as self-care opportunities is really important, both in the workforce and in our personal life. I know for many women, we always, I'll speak for women, we tend to put everybody else in front of us. So it's really important all around, whether it's personally or professionally, that you're incorporating self-care, because you're going to increase productivity when people are feeling good about themselves, when they're healthier, and you're creating not only, more productivity, but also a healthier and happier work culture and environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that actually makes me think of a couple things. One, in the clients that you serve and the people you work with, how many of them, is there a distinction between how many of them are trying to be self-employed and start their own companies, start their own businesses, versus those who work for a company? Or is there a majority that you work with, or is it fairly equally split?
All of the clients that I've worked with have basically either come from corporate and they're moving into the online space and they want to coach, or they have already started their business and they're moving into like a scaling level. So I haven't worked with many clients as far as like they're just solely corporate. They're either in corporate wanting to transition, or they've already transitioned into the online space.
Do you, okay, everybody wants to be a coach these days. And do you work with companies as well? Do you work with groups? Do you go in and implement or design programs for companies and managers and leadership as well?
I don't do that, but we literally just launched a branch of our business where we're launching this agency that we formed, where we're actually creating a done for you system for companies that want, or like say doctors, for example, they want to get more visible in the online space. Like they're trading dollars for hours, for example, for doctors. They're trading dollars for hours, and they want to create an additional revenue stream by broadening their scope of just seeing inpatient, like in office patients. We're creating now a done for you system where we can help companies expand that and create additional revenue by opening up their basically their customer base by coming into the international market through media and bumping up and elevating their online presence, because many of them don't know how to do it. So we now help them. We're building out their funnels, creating their offer, dialing in their messaging, getting them on podcasts and inside into the media to broaden their reach and their scope and their audience base, as well as coaching them into how to do this themselves after a period of time, so they're not reliant on us forever.
Right. And how does that impact the company itself? How does it impact sort of the mindset of the employees or the staff in these workspaces? How big are these groups that you're working with? How big are the organizations?
Well, we just started the agency piece. So we're just launching that, and we're focusing on like doctors, because we know that they don't know how to basically get visible in the online space. They're so used to dealing with one-on-one patients. So we're working with doctors who want to expand their reach through telemed by seeing more patients that way, and also have products where they can sell products and ship them to a larger audience base. Prior to the agency launching, which we just started, so we're just brand new into this piece of it, into the done for you system, we were working more on a group one-on-one and group program level with coaches and course creators.
Got it. Okay. So at the moment you're targeting individual doctors, not clinics, for example.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. So as someone who's built a business while being a single parent, what insights do you have or can you offer on achieving that work-life integration? You talked about that in the beginning and how you were working two jobs and then you went back to entrepreneurship and so on. I know I personally understand that it has a lot to do with personality as well. and goals and lifestyle and the why and what your circumstances are and so on. But specifically as a single, in your case, what are the insights you can offer in sort of achieving that balance that so many people crave?
That's a great question. And I was one of those people that was, I don't know, fighting to achieve that was the right word, but I felt like I was going after the work-life balance thing. And every day I was hitting that wall going, okay, I failed. The work-life balance didn't happen today. So I realized, having a conversation with somebody on my podcast, actually, I was like, wait a minute, work-life balance, I've been fighting for this or trying to go after this and achieve it for so long. And I'm always feeling like I'm failing. It doesn't feel good. So I'm like, wait, you know why? Because like when I think of balance, I think of a scale, right, with two sides, and we're always trying to bring that to an equal, like both sides of the scale equal, when it's not, really doesn't happen. It's more of a teetering back and forth kind of thing. So I was like, I threw out that whole idea of work-life balance, and now I call it work-life grace, because at some point many times work is going to need more of my attention. And many times my kids are going to need more of my attention. Sometimes I need more of my attention. And we need to give ourselves grace as far as like allowing ourselves to give more to one area when needed. So when work needs me, I let my kids know, hey, I'm working tonight until, like last night, I had a podcast interview at 7:00. So I worked till 8:00. So I just let them know, listen, we're doing dinner at this time. I need your help. Let's, support mom. And then after, we'll sit and watch TV or do whatever you all want to do. So it's just kind of like that communication. And then there's times where I'll pick them up from school and I'll be like, hey, Booze, I need 20 minutes. Mom's going to go lay down. I need me time. And they allow me to have that. So I kind of threw away that work-life balance because I was, like I said, I was always failing at it and it didn't feel good. And I'm like, I want to succeed. I want to like celebrate a win at the end of the day. And so I call it work-life grace, where, release the guilt.
Yeah.
And let's replace it with grace when we don't hit that work-life balance. Because just trying to get that scale even all the time wasn't working for me.
That resonates with me as well. And I really like that you sort of reframed it, because the scale is basically stress inducing, because you're trying to achieve something that isn't really sustainable. It's not that it's not achievable, it's not sustainable. Because to your point, life happens. You can't control
Exactly.
every moment of every day all the time. My own vision, is my why, as it were, in my work is to change how society interacts with the workplace. I want to change society's relationship with the workplace, and there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of steps and phases, and you're dealing with socioeconomic issues and so on. And the idea is to remove the expressions "live to work" and "work to live" from our vocabulary, for that just to not exist. For like
I love that mission.
future generations to not even know that expression. Because it's all the same. It's all one and the same. It's this question of, where you place your emphasis, what your own goals are, what your own reasons are, what you're trying to achieve, what your vision is. Do you want a family? Do you not want a family? How involved do you want to be with them? And so on and so on and so on. There's just too many questions to make it so cut and dry. And I think if we just not even blur, just remove the line between those two, then we'll just have a healthier sort of outlook on both sides. So when you, what was I going to say? I was going to ask about how can leaders, in your experience and in the way that you coach, how can leaders sort of encourage a culture of personal development that not only benefits employees and coworkers, but also translates into better business, better customer relations, better customer experiences, and so on?
Well, I think it starts with them. How are you showing up for your employees and for your team? And that open door policy that we talked about, and allowing them to have ownership, allowing them to create solutions and bring ideas and, have that, build that creativity, kind of culture into the business, and allowing them to, giving them perks like self-care, things that they can have and do. And, talking to your people, asking them, what is it that you need from me? Because many times we're always, in the workforce, you're told what they need from you, right? What you need, what, as far as an employer goes, like employers are always telling their employees like what they need from them. But what about reversing that and saying, what do you need from me? What would make you happy? And kind of like maybe every now and then have check-ins. Check in with your people, schedule it, whether it's, depending on how big your company is, maybe it's once a month. If that's too frequent, then maybe it's once a quarter. But allowing, that sit down one-on-one time really makes people feel like they're seen and they're heard. And they feel like they're making a contribution. People want to contribute. They don't not everybody has the entrepreneurial spirit. Not everybody wants that. And it's perfectly great. Because if we need entrepreneurs in order to build business, help support the building and growth of businesses. But we also need to make them feel important and that they matter and that they're seen and heard.
Agreed. That's actually what I was thinking before we met. I was, thinking about your philosophy and and your approach and everything. And to your point, even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, not everybody. It is not an easy thing. It's very, very, very challenging. And any entrepreneur will tell you that, to the point where most people, you see a lot of entrepreneurs sort of come out of the woodwork whenever there's a down market or they get laid off or something. The percentage really goes up, but then only about, I think, actually from a percentage point of view, like 10% stay in that space, and the rest basically go back to working for a company. And there's absolutely nothing inherently wrong with that. That's wherever you're most comfortable. But at the same time, I also believe that having that sort of, I guess you could equate it to a proactive kind of a mindset, i.e. entrepreneurial mindset, shifts the conversation in the workplace. So even if you're part of a team and part of a group, you bring ideas to the table, you bring value to the group, you bring more productivity because, to your point, you feel ownership, you feel like you actually have a say in the outcome of something, which ultimately I believe does affect the customer relationship and does affect the customer experience as well. So I was going to ask, so do you have a group? Do you work with a team yourself, or are you solo?
I have a team. So I have a business partner and I have an assistant. So our team is small. We meet once a week. So we connect once a week. And we also, whenever we need to talk to each other, we message each other or pick up the phone. But we do have a once a week meeting, just because I feel like that's how we kick off the week, just to make sure we know exactly what the agenda is for the week, what the deadlines are, and any questions or any ideas, suggestions moving forward, because we usually talk about like a quarter at a time. Like we map out the year, but then we also break it down into quarters. So we kind of like we'll throw ideas around, and I love when they're sharing ideas. Sometimes I'm like, no, I don't know if I agree with that one, but let me hear it out. And vice versa. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I never even thought of that option or that idea or whatever. And I'm like, that's a great point. Let's try it. Let's try it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
absolutely. You just made me think of there's this sort of method of collaboration that I'm very much against, which I call the collective we language, where people come into a meeting or something. These are the meetings that take 2 hours to get through, and it's just a meeting about other meetings and nothing comes out of it. And people offer their ideas, or the leader will be like, so what do we think about this? What are we going to do about this? What are we this? And there's never any decision making. And it's like this weird sort of, offing responsibility from yourself. And to the point where the people in the group, your team, as it were, doesn't really say what they want to say, because now they're speaking for the collective. So they say, well, maybe we should do this or we should do that. And then even if everyone agrees, the question becomes, okay, well, who's gonna do that?
Who's gonna take charge of it? Yeah.
And
Who's gonna take the ball and run it down the field?
absolutely. And so I'm with you. I'm the same way. I'm like, just tell me what you want to do. I say, I think this. What do you guys think? And you can disagree, and then we can have an actual conversation. And whoever has like the best idea, it's like, take it, go, do it, and you handle that and go
Right.
for it.
And it's worth a shot. If it doesn't work, okay, we tweak it and we keep going, but we won't know if it's going to work
Yeah.
unless we try it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And those meetings take 15 minutes.
Yeah. Our meetings are less than an hour every week.
Yeah, it's the best. So you in your work with your clients, a lot of what you're talking about is branding specifically. At least it's all the language of branding and similar to brand strategy. So do you use any of that language, or are you with intention trying to help people, these women that you work with, your clients, otherwise, create personal brands? Is that something that is talked about?
Absolutely. Because people resonate with people.
Yeah.
They don't resonate with a company or a business. So it's really, I feel like personal branding is extremely important in today's day and age. Not as important as it wasn't as important years and years ago, but now, especially with the evolution of social media and how much it's exploded, it's really important to create your personal brand. Mine is around, I'm from Florida. I was born and raised in Florida. I love the water. So my branding, you'll see the beach, you'll see water, you'll see, like, I love traveling. So I have kids. That's part of my brand. I think it's people resonate with story.
Yeah.
So I tell everybody, I'm like, and you know this because this is what you do. You probably know it better than I do. But I always tell my clients, I'm like, whatever your brand is now, it's going to evolve as you grow and evolve, as your business grows and evolves. So will your branding. If you're single right now, that's part of your brand. Once you get married, that's part of your branding. Once you have children, it becomes part of your branding. Everything about you is an extension. Your brand is an extension of you. So, really don't, some people can get so tied up and paralyzed by creating their brand. And I'm like, just have fun with it and know that it's going to grow and evolve. People change their brand colors all the time. What you have now, what you have 5 years from now, it could be completely different because of how you're growing and evolving and how your business grows and evolves. And I even tell them that with their business. What you're doing now may not be what you do 5 years from now. When I first started, I was in the health and wellness space. Then I went into transformational and goal setting. Now I work in business strategy. I wasn't a business coach when I started. I knew zero about business. I had no right telling people how to build a business. But it's grown and evolved as I've grown and evolved and as my clients have grown and evolved.
Yeah. I just really like your passion. It comes through. Brand strategy is always, a lot of people still have a hard time wrapping their head around it. What does it even mean? Because it's so intangible, right? And it's the marketing that's sort of the manifestation of your brand strategy. It's the physical manifestation, whether it's verbal or visual or even what do you call it? Like effort based, if it's an event, if it's an action or otherwise. It's important to note that a brand strategy is really a brand destination. It's like a map. It's where you want to be. It's not what you are now. It's what you want to be and what you aspire to be, and therefore manifest it through your actions, through your words, through the way you sound, the way you dress, the way you look, and so on, and how you present yourself in order to achieve that destination and reach that destination. And to your point, you will reach that destination. So once you do, then it needs to evolve, which is why we talk about, revisiting your brand strategy, not every 6 months, not every year. It needs to be strong enough to withhold at least 5 years and get up to 5 years. Sometimes it's 10. And then again, to your point, there's elements that can withstand all time, which often is your why and your essence and even the vision. The vision is something that's rarely, it's pretty hard to like actually achieve the vision in a tangible way. So that's like your North Star, right? The thing that consistently keeps you going. So that's really cool. I like that you bring that into the conversation.
Yeah, and I tell people too, because we can get caught. I know when I was starting, I was looking at everybody else doing what similar to what I was doing, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, their brand is amazing, and they're wearing a suit, and they're walking down Rodeo Drive and all that." And I'm like, "That's not me. I'm like the beachy person." So, like, be true to you when you're building out your brand. Don't compare yourself to what other people are doing, because if you're a white t-shirt kind of person, then that's part of who you are. Then don't try and wear the business suit, because it's not going to resonate. You're going to be miserable, and you're not going to attract the clients, your dream clients that you want to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been saying for a while, for years now, don't try to be better than your competition. Resonate with your audience so that you can inspire loyalty and attraction. Just don't worry about what other people are doing. If anything, look at your competition so you know just what they're producing, so that you're not producing the same thing. That's
Yeah. Well, it's working. You don't have to reinvent the
yeah,
wheel. You can emulate their content or something like that, because it's working, but you have to make it your own. You don't copy, right?
yeah,
You can kind of get ideas from what they're doing, and then make your own out of it. And you brought up your why, and I want to share, like, it's really important. Your why is going to change too. Your why will evolve. My children are now 13 and 15. When I started, they were like
yeah,
7 and 8,
right.
So soon they're going to be out of the house. Soon they're going to be graduating high school, going off to college, or whatever they're doing. And my why will change, because they're not
That's
home
true.
for me to be
Yeah.
home with. So my why will evolve. So it's really important that, as we're, growing, our why will evolve, your brand will evolve, and just be flexible and have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about more about your influence on your clientele, specifically those who want to actually start or already run companies and work with teams, and how your teachings influence their ability to influence their teams. So what are sort of the practices that you put in place, the teachings that you put in place, the philosophies, the ways of thinking that can be then transferred onto their own organizations and their own groups?
Well, for us, since we work with coaches and we're launching this new agency piece of our business, we do an onboarding session. That's how we start with somebody. And it's at least an hour. Sometimes if we need more time, then we'll schedule another one. I don't limit it, because it's really important that we get deep into their why, what their goals are, and what they want to achieve during our time of working together. And then once we lay out the goals, then we can reverse engineer that backwards and kind of set up what those next few months or 6 months or a year, however long we're working with that person or that company, what that looks like. So we have those like KPIs. We have those markers of what we want to achieve. So both of us know what's expected. Right.
Right.
Because I can't do this on my own. Like, especially if I'm working with a coach, like I can share tell them what to do and how to grow their business and get clients, but I can't do the work for them. On the agency side and the done for you piece, we actually do a lot of the work for them, but I also need them to do some of it as well. So they need to know what's expected. So I would say for organizations, if you're more of a brick and mortar company and you're having people in office, it's like having that time to sit down, well, I don't know if the CEO can do it, but whether it's HR or a manager, again, having that open door, really asking questions of like, what do you want to achieve in your time with us while you're here with us? Like what, and even in the interview process, like do they want to be a long-term contributor
Yeah.
to the organization? Or do they want to be moving up in the company? Like really finding out what their goals are is really important. And again, having that open door policy and allowing them to feel like they're seen and heard, just asking questions. So that's how we start. We start off with an onboarding call. We do have, on the agency side, we have weekly check-ins, one-on-one check-ins. In the coaching side, we have monthly accountability calls. So on each call, after the onboarding call, we lay out like what their goals are for the entire month, what their things are to hit. If they hit them early, they can schedule a call with me earlier. Yeah. But typically we have a once a month check-in where we find out where they're at, how much they've accomplished, and then we set the goals for the next month. So I think that is great for any type of organization.
Yeah, I agree. So in your own experience, what was sort of, I think I know the answer to this, but what was the scariest thing for you? If we go back to when you decided that, you want to start your own business and you want to become an entrepreneur and you want to stay at home with your kids and all this, what was the scariest thing for you and how did you get past that?
This is I love this story. So when I first started, I found coaching online. I saw this coach. I was on Facebook and she was like, "Oh, you could be a coach." Cause I was like, what am I going to do? I need to make money, but I really want to be home with my kids. Like I shared with you. But I knew I had to get work because to earn income while I was building. And everybody made it look so easy. There's so many successful coaches online crushing it. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be so easy. I'm going to go online, open my doors, tell people I'm open for business. And then the money's just going to come pouring in and the clients are going to start pouring in. And that was a no, because I quickly realized that I had to be seen. And that was my biggest fear, being vulnerable. Vulnerability is key when it comes to building an online business because people need to connect with you. They need to get to know you. Vulnerability was not my strongest suit. Plus, I had to actually turn on the camera and go live and write content and actually show up on video. And I was like, no, I can't do that. So I was in this coaching program that was way above my price point that I could afford at the time, but I did it anyway. And that's another thing, doing it anyway, doing it scared, hiring before you're ready. When I told you that I went through burnout, the second time when I relaunched my business, that's the first thing I did was bring in my assistant because I knew that I couldn't do this alone. And I did that the first time. And that was one of the key reasons I burned out. So I learned from that mistake and I hired before I was ready, but it was the best decision I made. This is before I brought in a business partner. But going back to your question of my fear, I literally the thought of going live and hitting that live button. And when I was going through the coaching program, she's like, you need to go live. You need to share your message. You need to build your email list. You need to go be vulnerable. And I'm like, I can't do any of that because I'm scared to death to even hit the button. So there was a woman inside the coaching program and she recognized that I was hiding. So I tell everybody, I'm like, don't be a hiding Heidi, because that was me. You want to put yourself out there and move through the fear way faster than I did, because it held me back for a long, long time. It literally held me back for months and months and months. So she called me out and we were in the DMs on Facebook and she was like, hey, Heidi, I have a challenge for you. Will you accept it? And we had become friends. So I was like, yeah, I trusted her. Big mistake. Just kidding. So I was like, sure, I'll accept your challenge. And she goes, great. I want you to go live in the Facebook group right now. And your topic is my breakdown to my breakthrough. And I was like, I can't do that. Because literally my chest started getting tight. I started shaking. I was sweating and my throat was closing at the thought of just going live in this group. And she was like, I'm here to support you, but you have to go live now if you want me there, because I'm on the other side of the pond. She was in England and she's like, it's after midnight here. I get to go to bed. She goes, so if you're going to do it, you need to do it now. So I was like, oh my God. So I go into the group, I hit the live button. And when I tell you, Nader, that it was the most horrific live stream that anybody could ever see. I wasn't just like freaking out. I was shaking. My chest was tight. My throat was closing and, I was sweating, but I was also crying. But I wasn't just crying. I was bawling my eyes out and I had no tissue anywhere to help me. So I'm wiping away the tears, sniffling, trying to hold it together. A migraine is ensuing because of the emotional trauma that I'm going through by going live. It was crazy. So I get through it. And I hit the end button, and I wish I had a recording of this, but the group was archived, and I wish I would have pulled it years ago because I would love to show it. I'm not embarrassed now. I'm like, believe me, you'll never be as bad as me. If anybody has this fear, I'm like, just watch this. So I go back into the DM, and she's like, great job. And I'm like, that was horrible. And she's like, I have another challenge for you. Will you accept it? And I'm like, oh my God, it can't be any worse than that. So I'm like, sure, I'll accept it. And she goes, great. I want you to go live for the next 5 days. And I said, good night. And I shut my computer down. I went to bed. And the next morning I woke up and I was scared to death to go in the group, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have so many people, like, one, probably nobody watched it. Or if they did, they're like not commenting because it was that bad. And I was shocked. There were hundreds of messages inside of there thanking me for showing up, thanking me for being vulnerable, thanking me for, like, just showing up fearful and being vulnerable about the fear, because so many people said, I have a fear of going live too. And I've been holding myself back. I thought I was alone in this fear. So it was really great for me to hear, like, I'm not alone. And two, there are other people that said, like, you know what, I don't have a fear of going live, but I do have this other fear that's been holding me back in my business. And you've inspired me to now take an action step forward today through that fear. One of the coaches inside the program, she actually did an impromptu training that day around my live stream and the power of vulnerability. So that taught me a lot. It didn't get me over my fear right away. I'm going to tell you, I still had a huge fear of going live. It took me a while and baby steps to move through it. So that I tell everybody, whatever fear you have, just take baby steps. If you have a fear of going live on social media, which I know many people do have that same fear, like, you don't need to jump out of the gate and do a 30-minute live. You can do a 2-minute tip of the day. You can go, take a walk around your neighborhood and film and go live for just a few minutes. So you're actually doing something else versus focused on sitting here and going, oh my God, how many people are watching me, or who's showing up, or how do I, navigate that, this technology. Like, have fun with it. But that was my biggest fear that held me back and that I had to move through. And now I can go live on a dime, and now I laugh at myself. Things go wrong, and it's just real life. Life happens. That's what I learned.
That's such a great story. And now you're killing it. Don't be a hiding Heidi. I love that.
Don't be a hiding Heidi. Exactly.
That's fantastic, and a phenomenal way to end our session. Thank you so much for coming on today, Heidi. Will you please tell our guests where they can find you and how they can reach you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nader. This has been so much fun and such a blessing and honor to be here with you. You can find me at HeidiSchalk.com. That is the website. You can also find me everywhere on social, Heidi Schalk Coaching on Instagram, LinkedIn, Heidi Schalk Coaching, Facebook, Heidi Schalk Coaching. You can also check out the Be S.H.E podcast. It stands for Be Seen, Be Heard, Be Empowered. You can go anywhere that you find your favorite podcast, or you can go check it out on the website as well.
Thank you so much. You heard it here. Don't be a hiding Heidi. Thank you so much, Heidi Schalk. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you, and we'll be in touch.